What does the current outlook of indie horror gaming look like in 2024? This video is going to answer just that, so stay tuned. I have played hundreds of indie horror games for fun and for the channel. As an avid fan of indie horror and an expert on the subject, here are my thoughts with key examples to demonstrate my most important points. You have something to add to the conversation, let me know down in the comments below. With indie horror games specifically, the stories tend to be more unique and original, which sometimes is very hard to find in AAA games. For example, Lazarus, you're on an abandoned cargo ship that has no longer reached communications with you. Some weirdness going on with an archaeologist and some kind of possible artifact. I won't spoil too much here. Go ahead and give that a shot if you're interested. There's also Replay, which you find this old Atari-like system with a game cartridge of a game you've never heard of before, and then your life starts to mimic that game world in just a weird way. Another example is to top it off what I mean by stories that are unique. We have Darkwood, which you arrive in a forest somehow, and this forest is so overgrown that it basically has a mind of its own as it's taking over this area that you found yourself in. And now for the dark side of indie horror games, and dark not being a good thing in this case. Going in puzzles. Now, puzzles that make sense, that go with the theme of the story and everything, are perfectly fine. Pushes the story along. However, there's a lot of puzzles that I have been seeing lately. Puzzles are just being put in just to add length to the game, add time for the player to be in the game, but not really adding much to the story, and sometimes even being awkward as to why are these even here. They don't make sense thematically at all. In Lazarus, there is a dinner plate puzzle. You have to put these dinner name tags in specific orders to get a key. But realistically, in the narrative of the story, there'd be no reason for the captain of the ship to do something like that. It didn't make sense. It was obvious that it was just in there, along with other puzzles within that game, just to make it so that way you had to be in the game longer. Possible reasons, so that way you couldn't refund the game because it pushed you past that 2-hour refund points that you see with Steam. Another example of this is in Poppy's Playtime Chapter 3. There was a room filled with evil gas in an orphanage, and you needed gas mask to get to said room without dying. However, the gas mask can be found hanging off a floorboard in a drop-down area within the orphanage. Why is it hanging off a floorboard, not like hanging on like coat rack or something near to the room in question? No, this is right when you first walk into the orphanage. Not really making sense, easy to overlook and bypass if you're not being careful with every inch and cranny that you're looking for. And this on a high note is that with these indie horror games, what they're doing really well is the audio escape is on point, and I'm counting to 6. You're in an abandoned village, house on the hill with mannequins surrounding the house. Just imagine that. And as you're going through the house, there's a creepy storm going off inside. Almost feeling like the storm is right there in your own town. And then as you're going through the house as well, there's a giant knock on the door. Almost feeling like somebody was knocking on my own door. I had to investigate in the middle of my recording just to make sure I was home alone like I thought I was. And beyond Hamwell, another good example for audio escape, you're exploring an abandoned insane asylum, falling apart, decrepit, but you can hear things leaking. You can hear things falling from the ceiling. It actually does feel like I'm exploring this insane asylum myself. The natural noises are there where they should be. Not overdone, but enough to create that ambiance and that tension of why am I here and am I actually alone? You might not be. Indie horror games specifically have been doing so well in bringing that realistic tension and realistic, unique stories and tales to us and bringing that story to life. Something that I really hope that they keep trending towards and making them even more realistic. That's why we all typically play indie horror games, or even horror games for that matter. And that's because of the story. We want to be invested in the story that is so nerve-wracking, that is so realistic, that we can almost put ourselves exactly in the place of the main character. What they could improve on is if you're going to add gimmicks, mechanics, or puzzles, make it make sense with the story. Don't just throw stuff in there just to add some depth to the game, because all you're doing is breaking the immersion, which is the most important factor when it comes to any horror game. You want the player to feel like their life is on the line, that they are in that haunted house with the monster or mannequin chasing right behind them. I really want the genre to keep going in the direction of this quirky realm that really builds this great story while delivering on an amazingly built setting. It feels lifelike. If you like what you've seen or you disagree or agree, let me know down below your thoughts on the state of indie horror games or horror games in general. I'm gonna... please.